Deputy Keaveney, question number 4.
Well, I'm fully cognizant of the fact of Section 6 of the HSE Governance Act of 2013, so we will not be specific in the question with respect to any one individual. The objective of the question is to profile from the Minister what are the Minister's plans to deal with the unacceptable waiting times, in particular for children who have been waiting up to 3 years for an intervention for scoliosis. Minister, would you tell me why are children waiting up to 3 years for an intervention from the HSE in this respect?
The Government is working to ensure that long waiting times for scoliosis surgery are reduced, and the focus is on additional resources and capacity to carry out the surgery. Our Lady's Children's Hospital in Crumlin is the largest provider of scoliosis surgery for children and young people. Additional funding was allocated in 2015 for additional consultant posts, including 2 consultant orthopaedic surgeons, anaesthetists and support staff at Crumlin. Capital funding has also been provided for a new theatre on site to expand theatre capacities further. This will be open in the spring. In the interim, patients in Crumlin are being transferred to other hospitals where capacity is available and where that's clinically appropriate. These include Temple Street, which has taken some cases, Kappa for older kids, Tala, and also the Blackrock Clinic, where it's being paid for privately. Recently, external capacity has also been identified at the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital at Stanmore in London. These measures in total have doubled the capacity for this surgery for patients on the Crumlin waiting list in 2015. 2 consultant orthopaedic surgeons have also been appointed recently at Galway University Hospital to support the spinal service there. In the short term, Galway is actively working to assign dedicated beds to support this service and exploring the potential to refer some patients out to other hospitals for surgery. HSE is continuing to work with the Children's Hospital Group, Sales Hospital Group and the individual hospitals to identify all options to increase capacity further to improve access times for surgery.
Thank you. Deputy Keaveney.
Before the Minister would be aware that there is no national screening service for the onset of scoliosis. Curvature of the spine is probably first observed by a GP or a family member. In light of the fact that we have a situation where the waiting lists are increasing significantly and waiting times that require immediate interventions, I think beyond, certainly my advice from an orthopaedic surgeon, beyond the age of 16, it's next to near pointless for an acute intervention to address the progressive nature of scoliosis. There are children languishing on waiting lists over 3 years for an intervention that wouldn't be considered likely by a family. It's a pretty serious operation. Minister, what plans do you have to accelerate the waiting times, in particular for the HSE West, which would appear to be out of kilter? 3 years waiting for an intervention to address the chronic acute nature. This is not an elective procedure. There are children who are begging you for an operation.
Minister.
And I'm asking you, Minister, to be more specific. What plans are you going to ensure that people are
Sorry, would you recognise the chair, please? There are other deputies with other questions. We never reached them.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Look at what needs to be done here. Obviously, is the number of operations done every year needs to be increased and needs to be increased substantially. That's the only solution. There are barriers to that. You need to recruit appropriately qualified consultant orthopaedic surgeons. You need to recruit appropriately qualified theatre nurses, and you need to have theatre time and theatre space. And I met with the consultants in Crumlin, who are specialists in this area, quite some time ago, and they agreed that what was necessary was a whole new theatre in Crumlin to provide that additional capacity. That is now under construction. Work is now being done to staff that, and it should be open in the new year. And that will allow us to double capacity for children's orthopaedic surgery in Crumlin. And that's being done even though a whole new hospital is going to be built in a few years' time. But this situation is so serious, we can't wait for that. And that's why this new theatre is being done, and efforts are now underway to staff it. In the meantime, what's happening? Other hospitals that can help out are helping out. Temple Street, for example, has taken 3 patients. Stanmore in London is taking patients, and that's important too. And also some paid cases are being done in Blackrock and are being sent out privately. In relation to Galway, that's something I've asked my department.
Sorry, I'll let you back in again.
Okay.
Deputy Keaveney.
Minister, the human cost of not intervening, it's an intervention. I'm aware of a particular case where there was a once grade A student who hasn't gone to school for 70 days already of this year, academic year, who now actually is a service user of the mental health services in Galway at the age of 16 as a consequence of 3 years languishing on a waiting list. I'm asking that the Minister would ensure that we would introduce a national screening programme, that we can actually intervene at an earlier juncture of somebody's life and to get the intervention that's required to give an opportunity for someone to live the most successful life that they can under the circumstances and scourge of scoliosis. And that's going to require greater investment and taking people off a waiting list and getting them to Crumlin, because I notice it's Crumlin, Kappa, Blackrock. I'm talking about, in particular, a case that you and I both know in the west of Ireland, where a young woman, once grade A student, has now collapsed waiting for an intervention. And it is completely unacceptable that the HSE West would not progress this case to ensure that this young woman had an opportunity to live a successful and equal life like any other child her age as a consequence of their own mismanagement.
Minister.
Look, once again, it's not appropriate for me to comment on individual cases, and without knowing all individual cases that exist out there, there may be individual cases that are more in need, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to be personally yourself deciding which cases should be prioritised and not, and that's something that I'm not going to do either. In relation to the West and Galway specifically, one thing that might make sense is a national list. It doesn't make sense to me that children in the Galway region should be waiting longer than children from the Leinster region. So that's one of the things I've asked my officials to discuss with the HSC and the Children's Hospital Group. And also, any time there's low volume surgery being done anywhere, there are concerns about that, about whether any surgeon should just be doing a few types of an operation a year. So that's something that I've asked my officials to investigate. As I said, everything is being done to double capacity for this type of surgery this year. London is being used, Blackrock is being used, other hospitals are being used. So everything that I think can be done within reason is being done to address this very serious problem.